So welcome everyone to the new maps training, the HUBZone new maps training. My name is Andrew Shiopane, and I will be doing the training for you today. So, as you all know, the one big thing we're talking about today is the HUBZone Maps training. And you'll be all seeing the new maps, and for the record, the maps are all available online right now and on Certify. So, just to know, this past Monday, SBA released a new version of the HUBZone maps. It includes a whole bunch of mapping, usability, and design enhancements. Basically, what you'll be seeing with the new maps is if you've used the old maps at all, you won't be disappointed with the new maps. I'll just put it that way. The maps are the first part of the improvement to HUBZone's application process on the Certified platform. And because the maps are being developed in an agile fashion, they'll be continued to be updated as we go on based on user feedback. So if you have any feedback, it's important that you send it to us, and you can email hubzone@sba.gov to send us your feedback about the maps. In the future, there may be some other email address to send it to, but for now, we'll use hubzone@sba.gov for our purposes. So there are a few things to remember about the HUBZone maps. One of the big things that we need to remember for right now is that the HUBZone certification tracking system, which is called HCTS, is not yet connected with the new HUBZone maps. They still pull, and just to backtrack a bit, the certification tracking system is the system that we use to process the HUBZone applications. So what occurs in that system is when you do a new application, it will actually pull your address and then basically ping that address against the maps and get a result from them. However, because the system is not pointing yet to the new maps, it's still getting all of its address data from the old maps. And the two are pretty similar. There are a few updates that have been done on the new maps that are not on the old maps, but for the most part, they should be pretty in sync. However, if firms run into problems with mapping in their application, they can go ahead and click on the little checkbox within the application to disagree with the results, and then they'll have to submit as well as authorize their application. And whatever happens after that, it won't matter what the system says, because we will have within the HUBZone team an analyst who will go ahead and review the cases where folks say that they disagree with the mapping assertion. And this method will be used until HCTS can pull mapping information from the new maps. So we're working on that right now. We'll get that integrated hopefully sooner rather than later. But until that happens, the main thing to remember is that folks can still submit applications. If they look at the new maps and if the maps say that they're in a HUBZone, but their application says, hey, actually, we don't see you in a HUBZone, they can just go ahead and disagree, and we will check the addresses against the new maps. Some more things to remember. Upon release, which I guess it's already been released, so right about now, all links to the old HUBZone maps should be discontinued. So if you have any websites or training brochures or flyers or anything like that, please go ahead and peruse them and ensure that all the links are updated to the new maps. And actually, it's preferred that any links to any maps should point to the HUBZone Maps landing page at sba.gov/HUBZone-maps. That points to SBA's public-facing website. It's the one with the big blue button that says "See the HUBZone map." That way, if hyperlinks point to the maps landing page, all of the announcements that are related to maps will be posted on that page, and folks can click on that button to go to the maps. And whatever latest version of the maps we're going to be using, the maps will always be linked that way. And then the final thing to remember here, if firms have any questions about the maps, about usability, about any random questions they may have, they can connect to HUBZone office hours. or Tuesday to Thursday from 2 to 3 p.m. Eastern Time. Bookmark www.sba.gov/HUBZone for the dial-in info, and we'll go there and we'll take a look at it in a second. And the reason why we say bookmark sba.gov/HUBZone for the dial-in info is because sometimes we change the passcode to get into the webinar, or to get into the conference, because the passcode is put on a public-facing website, and anyone can essentially Google SBA HUBZone office hours and get that passcode. They sometimes hack into it, and so we occasionally have to change the passcode. And I think that's it for things to remember. So here's an example of the HUBZone certification tracking system mapping assertion. When firms go in and they submit their information, the application will pull their information. Here we're looking at an address in Puerto Rico, and the assertion says that it's not located in any of the different HUBZone designations. But what we have on the bottom is the disagreement the checkbox was ticked. So what we see on our side is whoever was doing the application says, I disagree, and I believe that my principal office is located in a qualified HUBZone location. When we see that, we will go ahead and manually check those locations against the new maps. It's no different than what we normally do when we see that disagreement, but it's just a way of reassuring folks that if you do have a firm that wants to do a HUBZone application, don't be discouraged by this particular thing that automatically says, actually, you're not located. Because if you see that you're located in a HUBZone, you probably are, and we will check that for you. So before we look at the maps themselves, I just want to do a quick overview of the HUBZone Map Designations, just so folks are aware in case they aren't. There are currently 6 different HUBZone designations. An address within any of these locations is an eligible HUBZone area. So the designations are qualified census tracts, which are updated when Housing and Urban Development releases their annual data, usually around the end of the year. So the qualified census tracts are normally updated around January. Then there are qualified non-metro counties. And there are 3 different updates that occur for qualified non-metro counties, because a non-metro county could potentially be qualified in 3 different ways. They can be a DDA, which is a difficult development area, and this particular type of qualification applies to the areas outside of the 48 states. So, in other words, this designation applies to areas like Alaska, Hawaii, Puerto Rico, the Virgin Islands, Guam, etc. And that update comes out generally around the same time when Housing and Urban Development releases annual census tract data. So that's updated around the same time. Then non-metro counties can be qualified by median household income. That information is derived from the Census Bureau, and that information comes out around the beginning of the year, around either around December or January, around that period of time, and it comes from the American Community Survey 5-year estimate. Pausing here for a second because I see a comment here saying that they are not seeing the video, but you do hear the audio. If that's occurring, I would recommend that you try and go in and out of the webinar, because I believe the video should be showing for everyone when we did the check earlier. Just double checking here. Okay. So going back to qualified non-metro counties, sometimes the DDA and the income updates are released at the same time, because the data comes out approximately around the same time. So And then finally, you can be a qualified non-metro county through unemployment. And that data is derived from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. That release is sometime in the summer months, June, July or so. The data is released around May or June, and it's after that point that we take it in for analysis and then submit the updates for changing the maps. So that's why for qualified non-metro counties, that designation is updated 2 to 3 times per year. It's 3 times if we do each of one of these updates separately. It's twice if DDA and income are combined into one update. So going further down, we have qualified Indian lands, which are based on federally recognized tribes, and those qualifications do not expire. Then we have qualified base closure areas. They are based on whenever DoD tells us, whenever Department of Defense tells us that a base is closed, and the expiration is dependent on the date of closure. And it gets into a lot more technicalities on that, but I'll leave it at the fact that those areas do expire after a certain date. And you'll see when we get to the maps that you'll see the dates listed on there. Then we have qualified disaster areas, which are a new designation. And by new, I mean I think the designation, the regulation for the designation came out on October 3rd of last year, if I recall correctly. And we have them listed on the new maps. The qualified disaster areas are based on presidential disaster declarations, and the data set is updated monthly if any disaster declarations have been made. And the expiration for qualified disaster areas is dependent on the disaster date or the date of redesignation if redesignation occurred within 2 years after the disaster. And then finally, we have redesignated areas. Redesignated areas apply only to qualified census tracts and qualified non-metro counties. Those are the only 2 areas, the only 2 types of qualifications that can be redesignated. So redesignated areas are formerly qualified census tracts or non-metro counties, and redesignations last for 3 years from the loss of qualification. And what it is essentially a grace period so that HUBZone firms within those redesignated areas have options as to whether or not they would like to move to another HUBZone area to maintain qualification or to carry out any contracting activities or whatever it is that the firm is doing at the time. But essentially, if an area is redesignated, it means that the economic conditions that qualified them have improved, and thus they are no longer qualified because things are better. But that doesn't mean that they could become newly designated or newly qualified again. But for the most part, when you have a redesignated area, the redesignation will last for 3 years. And again, with the new maps, you'll be able to see the expiration dates of those redesignated areas. Moving on to the next slide. This is the link to the HUBZone maps. This is the direct link. And I want to stop here and just say again, if you were hyperlinking the HUBZone maps anywhere, we highly recommend that you, instead of linking this particular link that you see on your screen, link the HUBZone Maps landing page, which is at www.sba.gov/HUBZone-maps. And the reason for that is if you link to the Maps landing page, folks will be able to see both any announcements that are made surrounding the HUBZone Maps within that website, as well as in case we ever change this link to anything else in the future, we can, if folks can go to the landing page instead of directly to the maps, they'll be able to click on the big old button and they'll be able to see whatever the latest link is for the maps. And then another note here is to use Google Chrome or another modern browser to open the maps. Here at SBA, we have an older version of Internet Explorer, so we ran into an issue where the version was too old to be compatible with the maps, because they really are, they're modern maps. So it's just a note, when using the maps, use a modern browser. So some of the map features that we have are mobile functionality and location data searching. Mobile, and that basically means that when you can access this link on your mobile device, whether it's your phone or your tablet or whatever it might be, and you should be able to access it. It's been optimized for mobile use. And it also has location data searching. So what that means is, much like Google Maps or another mapping software, if you allow it to search for your location, you can basically stand somewhere and say, okay, is where I'm standing a hub zone? And it will say yes or no based off of wherever it is that you're standing. So that's a really useful feature to use, especially for folks that may be in more rural areas or areas that aren't geocoded as well, or have a database to associate a particular address with a particular geocoded location. It's a way for folks to be able to figure out if where they actually are is in HUBZone. The new maps also allow for fuzzy address searching, and what that means is if you use the old maps at all, you know that you have to type in the street address and the city and the state and the zip code all in different boxes, and it has to be all lined up perfectly so that you could get a correct result. The new maps, much like how it is with other modern mapping services like Google Maps or Bing Maps or Apple Maps, you can just sort of type in whatever it is you want. You can say, 123 Main Street, Washington, D.C., and then it'll pop up with a result. You can also search for coordinates, much like you could with the old map. And again, that's really useful for areas that aren't geocoded as well, or may not have addresses associated with a particular geocoded location. You can also do name and landmark searching. So name searching means that if you have your business listed and associated with a particular address, you can search for your business by name, and it'll pop up on the map. You can also search for landmarks, and this is again helpful for those areas that may not be listed in databases with addresses associated. If you search for the nearest landmark, you can see whether the landmark right next to your firm or right next to a firm is a hub zone. And then finally, there's also the feature of reverse geocoding. And what that is it allows you to enter coordinates, and the map will give you an address that corresponds to those coordinates. It may not give you the exact address. It may just give you the street that the address is on, or a range of addresses. But it's a way for you to see if a particular set of coordinates corresponds to a particular listed address. So here we're looking at the HUBZone map design. On the top left, over here, this is where you type in your address or your coordinates, and then you hit search. When you do that, you will see this pin show up in the location that you searched, and this sidebar will pop out. The address and coordinates will pop up here. So here you can see the address, and then you can see the corresponding coordinates. The box below it will say qualified hub zone or not qualified, and as the example shows, it shows whether or not the location is qualified. And further below is an expandable area, and if you expand it, the box will show you the types of qualifications at the location. So this particular address that we searched for here is a qualified hub zone, and it is qualified because it is a qualified census tract. It is also in a qualified non-metro county, and it is also in a qualified Indian land. And then you can use this printable version PDF icon here to create a PDF, which will then create an assertion report that can be then sent to the HUBZone program for documentation or for proof. On the bottom, you can see the qualification validity date. And so we took this screenshot about a week ago or so, and so the qualification was valid for that day, and it should show whatever the current date is of your when you're doing your search. And then all the way on the left here, if you look at the legend can be toggled to show or not, and then each different type of qualification can be toggled on or off to graphically show on the map. So in case you want to see census tracts or only counties and census tracts, you can uncheck the rest of these qualifications, and those will be the only ones that show up on the map. The map has been designed with 5-way compliance in mind. So this particular color scheme was deemed to be very helpful by folks that have vision impairments, and they also have corresponding text with them. So that's what I have for the presentation. We'll move on to the actual viewing of the map. Before we do, I just want to point out that if you go to www.sba.gov/HUBZone, as I'm doing, and click OK, this is the page where folks can find the office hours dial-in info. So you can see the information right here. Again, that's Tuesdays and Thursdays from 2 to 3 p.m. Eastern. From now until August or so, whoever is running the office hours will be spending 5 to 10 minutes talking about the HUBZone maps. So that's an avenue for firms that are interested or want to know something in particular about the maps, for them to check in with us. And also to provide feedback, because like I said, this is being developed in an agile fashion. So if we have feedback to improve the maps, we will do so, and it'll be incremental. So this I've clicked on right here. This is where sba.gov/HUBZone-maps points to. This is the HUBZone Maps landing page, and this is the page that I would recommend everybody link to instead of linking directly to the map. This way they can see announcements on the map. For example, we have this announcement here to basically state, "Hi folks, we've released new maps." And then you can click on the big blue button here to see the actual HUBZone map. And you can do this right now on your computer if you'd like. So you notice when I click on the actual HUBZone map, when you first take a look at it, you'll get this question up here saying, maps.certify.sba.gov wants to know your location. If you allow it, it'll find you. So here you can see we're located in DC, and this is our current location. And it'll really help in case you are using a mobile device, or you want to know where you're standing or where you're physically located is in the HUBZone. If you decide to not do it, if you decide to not have your location enabled, you can, I'll just show you real quick what it looks like. It'll say you want to know your location, and you decide to not do that. The little pop-up box here will say it cannot determine your location, and then it'll refer you to the help section. You can just quit out of that and then move forward. So this is the base of what the map looks like. Before I move to displaying any of the address searching features, I want to point out the legend on the left side here. You can move the legend, you can hide or show the legend as such. And you can show a particular type of designation in case you're particularly interested in, for example, base closure areas. You can see only base closure areas on the map if you would like. Or, you know, turn them all on, or however it is that you want to do it. And I'll explain a bit more about what these all correspond to when we move forward. So let's go on to doing some map searching. When you want to search for addresses or coordinates, you just type them in the search box here. And I've got a few searches that we should try out. So here we're just doing a regular address search. We're searching for 360 Merrimack Street. And as you can see, as I'm typing, suggestions are popping up. So this is the one we want, 360 Merrimack Street, Lawrence, Massachusetts. So clicked on that. Oops. Accidentally clicked outside of it. All right. So as you saw when I ran the search, we can see the pin, which is shown here, and this sidebar pops up here. You can see the address on the top, and you can see the coordinates on the bottom. You can see that it's a qualified hub zone, and there's a little collapsible area here that will show you additional details. The additional details say that it's in a qualified census tract. And like I showed earlier, you can click on this printable version, and what it will do is it will create a PDF version that says, look, it's in a qualified HUBZone census tract. It shows the location on the map. And on the bottom here, you can see when the report was generated to date stamp it. And on the bottom here, you can see qualification is valid for today, June 28th. Now, while we're here, we want to look at some of the other features of the map. If you want to close or open the sidebar, you can do so by just clicking on that button right there. And let's say you want to take a different look. You want to do a standard view. This is, again, how you see it on Google Maps, because it is based off of the Google Maps functionality. Or you can run into a satellite view. And it is harder to see the graphical descriptions of census tracts and whatnot when you use the satellite view, but the satellite view does provide you with an image that says, okay, well, maybe I want to double check to see if this firm that I'm thinking about is actually in a hub zone. So if you search, here we've searched 360 Merrimack Street, Lawrence, Massachusetts. And this does look like it could be a place for a firm. There's a big parking lot. There's clearly what looks to be like an office building. So we can say with reasonable confidence with satellite data that the firm is actually located where they say they're located. You can switch to different views here. You can also, if you would like, move this little man around and utilize Google Street View functionality to look at the area as well. And this can also help if a firm is looking to check out potential HUBZone areas. This is a way for them to integrate both the HUBZone search as well as searching for areas on Google Maps or whatever other mapping service you may use. Over here, if you want to exit out of this, you can go ahead and click on this back button here. You can also, if you would like, view the particular area you're looking at on Google Maps. We're going to back out, and we're going to try another search. So that's just a regular address search. This time, we're going to search for a name. So I've got a business here that I want to search for, and it is called One Stop Environmental. And there it is. It just pops up. Go ahead and click on it. You can verify that the address is consistent with the address that you have on file for the firm by taking a look at the address on the right. And then again you can see it's in a qualified hub zone, it's in a qualified census tract, and the rest of the features that I showed you here. One thing that I've forgotten to mention is if you want to, you can zoom in and out using these buttons below, or by using your scroller on your mouse, your trackpad. So next here, I want to search for some coordinates. And these coordinates will show us what different qualifications, one on top of the other, look like. I'm going to go ahead and search for these coordinates right here. So one of the things I want to point out about coordinate searching is you notice that I just typed in coordinates. Earlier we were talking about reverse geocoding, and so just want to make a quick note that when I searched for these coordinates, an address popped up on the sidebar. that's what we're referring to when we're talking about reverse geocoding. You can search for GPS coordinates, and it will return an address for you. Corresponding coordinates, of course, are below. So this particular set of coordinates is in a census tract, is qualified by census tract, qualified by non-metro county, and also qualified by Indian land. And again, if you want to only see the Indian land qualifications, you can do so by clicking on the legend here. But it's important to note, if you notice, even if I take away all of these qualifications and I click on this area on the map, so let's say even if I click down here, the sidebar will still pop up and will show you all of the different ways it's qualified or not. What you can see, just so I can do it once more, I want to take a look at this particular point, but none of this is graphically being demonstrated. I see that it's still a qualified hub zone, even though you don't see it on the map. And if I click on additional details, you can see that it's within a qualified census tract, county, and also qualified Indian land. The other thing to note over here too is, as I've been clicking on these areas on the maps themselves, if you take a look at the address bar, you notice that the GPS coordinates are changing. See that. And this is also another way to help out with reverse geocoding. If you click on search, I accidentally clicked on the map instead of search. If you click on the search, you will see that the address pops up on the sidebar. So it's just another way to reverse geocode. The next thing I want to show here is what a qualified disaster area looks like on the map. I have this one address here that we're going to take a look at. 801 East New Haven Avenue. Melbourne. And you notice I'm just sort of typing in whatever it is I need to search, and it'll pop up the suggestions for me. I guess it's also important for me to graphically display what we're talking about here. So here you can see that 801 East New Haven Avenue in Melbourne, Florida is in a qualified census tract disaster area. And what that means is this is a qualified disaster area, but it's qualified by census tract. And to backtrack a little bit, again, it's only formally qualified non-metro counties or formally qualified census tracts that have been redesignated within the past 5 years that can become qualified disaster areas. So this is what you see here. And the one other thing I want to point out is if you're looking at the disaster area legend, this blue area here corresponds to disaster areas that are census tracts. And the red corresponds to disaster areas that are non-metro county. This is to be consistent with the census tract and the county display up here. And the same thing goes for redesignated areas. So if we're looking at a redesignated area instead, here we have some blue diagonals. That signifies a redesignated census tract. If we saw some red diagonals, we would see that would be a redesignated non-metro county. And that's why there's these blue diagonals and red diagonals, blue horizontal lines, and red horizontal lines. And then for closed base areas, as you may guess, consistent with the pattern, blue dots are closed base area BRAC closure census tracts. Red dots are BRAC closure non-metro counties. And then the black dots are where the actual base location was prior to its closure. Moving on, I want to give another reverse geocoding example here, just so you can see how it looks. So let's say you have these coordinates right here, 42.71019 latitude negative 71.14497 longitude. I'm going to go ahead and search that. We want to know what the address is. Well, it turns out that the address for that particular set of coordinates, which is the only piece of information we had, is 120 Howard Street, Lawrence, Massachusetts. So it's just another way of being able to search for a particular location. You can physically stand on the spot using the location functionality. You can get a set of coordinates and search for an address. You can type in the name of a business or the name of a landmark and search for the area there. You can toggle on or off the different types of HUBZone qualifications if you would like to see only one particular type. And you can take coordinates from the sidebar or just click on the map anywhere and the coordinates will automatically pop up that refer to that one particular location. And that is all I have for the map. So I'm going to stop the recording here, and I will open it up for questions.